Hello, and welcome to the Aperture Science Enrichment Center. Thank you for volunteering to partake in our test today, and/or not resisting our test subject acquisition android. Today, we will be performing a series of tests to see how the human psyche reacts to an array of mildly stressful stimuli, including high-energy lasers, military-grade androids, and vats of acid. Upon your completion of the test, you will receive a complimentary cake. So please, proceed to the...
Pause whatever testing you are doing immediately. I don't want to see another cube or button interactive. Okay, yep, I'm here with the ICH. I hear you're conducting some tests with some live human subjects. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's all I need. And tell me, you don't happen to be forcing these test subjects to navigate deadly puzzle chambers filled with high-energy lasers, military-grade androids, and vats of acid, are you? We got him. All right, everybody, move in. We're shutting this place down. Go, go, go. Richard, hit that intro. We're shutting it down. Science. It is the language and means by which we understand this great big universe we live in. It's the driving force behind all our advancements in technology, medicine, infrastructure, and all the luxuries of modern life. It's why all those birds and squirrels are out there scrounging for food in the dirt, while I'm in this heated house chilling, belly full of a burrito that I had delivered by a stranger. Skill issue. Now, if pretty much any movie, video game, or real-world billionaire whose entire understanding of science comes from those aforementioned movies and video games are to be believed, science can either be performed safely or effectively. And the main antagonists of Portal and its sequel, Aperture Science, are no exception. In the immortal words of Aperture's founder, Cave Johnson,
"Science isn't about why, it's about why not. Why is so much of our science dangerous? Why not marry safe science if you love it so much? In fact,
if you play it safe, you're never gonna learn anything. And if you have to injure, maim, and or traumatize a couple of people to improve the lives of billions more, that's a sacrifice worth making. After all, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. And by omelet, of course I mean a device to make people really mad on Twitter, and by eggs, I mean all the bones in some poor test subject's body after they fell 20 feet onto some blue paint that you told them was repulsion gel. For science! Except it turns out all those books, video games, and billionaires that don't actually know much about real science may have been wrong. And this isn't the either-or scenario they present it as. Who knew? Real science can, in fact, be performed effectively, efficiently, and safely. In this case, you can have your cake and eat it too. There is a cake, right? That's where the ICH comes in, or the International Council for the Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Pharmaceuticals for Human Use. You can see why they shortened it. They're a conglomerate of regulatory bodies from around the world that oversees any scientific experiment or trials that involve human subjects. In the real world, it's mainly pharmaceuticals, but I guess if you ever wanted to get a real-world human to help you violate the laws of space and time, these are the people you'd answer to. And for legal reasons, I would like to disclose that I am in no way affiliated with the ICH. I'm just a guy who looked up a document and put on a lab coat so we could write it off as a work expense on his taxes. The aforementioned document in question is ICH's Guidelines for Good Clinical Practice, or the GCP E6R3, the flagship document to help scientists perform science safely and effectively. These 86 pages are filled with rules and regulations to ensure that your experiments produce reliable, valuable, and verifiable results without committing any human atrocities in the process. And as you could probably guess by these incredible names, it was an absolutely riveting read. So today, I'm going to apply these rules and regulations to Portal and its sequel, Portal 2, to see how much good science is really getting done at Aperture. So leave your guesses in the comments down below on the total number of confirmed violations by Aperture. This document contains a total of 46 principles and 38 lengthy annexes that dictate exactly how experiments with human subjects should be conducted. Don't worry, I won't read them all out to you, but I do want to highlight Principle 1.1, the very first rule described in this document. The rights, safety, and well-being of the participants are the most important considerations and should prevail over the interests of science and society. There's a chance you may already recognize this line. Pretty sure it was taken directly from the Portal plot synopsis. However, many of these rules either don't apply to Portal and Aperture specifically, or we have no way of validating them based on the information we see in the games. For example, the GCP dictates that every experiment must be verified and monitored by an independent third party, such as the Institutional Research Board or the International Electrotechnical Commission, both from an ethical and technical perspective. And, it certainly seems unlikely, but I guess there's a chance that someone like Black Mesa has done their civic duty and checked all of Aperture's experiments beforehand.
Haha, that was a very funny joke.
I get it, thanks, man. So, after weeding out all the irrelevant or unverifiable regulations and grouping a few similar ones together, I was left with 10 clear rules that Aperture's experiments must comply with. It is important to note, however, that these rules only apply to experiments and tests, not the day-to-day operations of the Aperture Science Facility. Sure, the ICH would prefer if you didn't construct your research spheres out of asbestos, knowing full well the dangers of it, but that ain't my department. For that reason, I'm only going to be looking at the sections of these games that involve active testing, like the first half of Portal 1, Old Aperture, and a smattering of other sections from Portal 2, but not the part where you try to escape after GLaDOS tries to kill you, the part where you try to escape with Wheatley after resurrecting GLaDOS, whom you previously killed, or the part where you try to escape after Wheatley tries to kill you. Doesn't exactly bode well for the stuff that came before that, but So, with all the ground rules established, let's go through each of these 10 regulations and see how many times the good folks at Aperture performed some not-so-good science. For the sake of time, I'll explain a few key violations for each one, and list all the other levels that violate each rule at the bottom of the screen. Which again, doesn't really bode well for them. Rule number 1 I already talked about. The safety of the participant comes before science or society. It's a big one. Fiction is filled with mad scientists who try to justify their acts of cruelty with some grand speech about the necessity of sacrifice to create a better world for all. But turns out it's really not that serious. You could just make cool stuff and test it in reasonable ways. I mean, like, what do I know? But it seems like you maybe didn't need to drown all those people in that acid to make sure that your portal gun worked. You could have just, like, shot it at the wall, threw something through it. Oh, it works! Again, what do I know? Of the 63 chambers and levels across both games that qualify as an active testing environment, a total of 62 violate this rule. The opening wellness check from Portal 2 seems fine. Still, not a great start. A lot of the rules and principles listed in the GCP have to do with obtaining explicit participant consent prior to starting the experiment. Sure, tricking someone into signing a, quote, phone book of a contract that you know full well they didn't actually read might be enough for the suits and legal, but not the ICH. Any participant needs to have a full understanding of the procedures, goals, and risks involved in the trials prior to signing any documents, and that consent may be rescinded at any time for any reason. You also can't use any form of coercion to obtain that consent. Sure, in some cases, you can compensate your participants, but any planned compensation must be explicitly approved by the ICH or a similar regulatory body. I'll be honest, I couldn't care less if the cake is real or not. You shouldn't have offered it in the first place. This process must be done prior to a participant engaging in an activity with any degree of risk, including, but not limited to, operating experimental space-time manipulating firearms, battling mutated mantis men, having their blood turned into gasoline with invisible lasers, standing in front of a superconductor set to full blast to, quote, see what happens, using nanobots to inject experimental genes into their tumors that you tricked them into getting, drinking coffee spiked with fluorescent calcium, having a microchip inserted into their brain that can reach temperatures of up to 500 degrees, or traveling back in time and meeting a past version of themselves that could potentially unravel all of existence. Seems like kind of a weirdly specific list of hypotheticals, but I guess props for being thorough there, Richard. What do you mean these aren't hypotheticals? Rule 3 is kind of a broad one. The potential benefits of a trial should outweigh any potential risks. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not really sure what the potential benefits are of making a person navigate a course designed for military-grade androids, but I can certainly see the risks. For this one, I decided to add a violation for every test chamber that includes something that can kill you. Seems like a pretty big risk for, again, no real feasible benefit that I can see. We know the portal gun works. I see no reason to psychologically torment someone by forcing them to incinerate the companion cube that I spent the whole chamber bonding with. I won't let you take them! Now, obviously, while Rule 3 is meant to mitigate any excessive danger as much as possible, sometimes accidents happen and people get hurt. In that case, you must always have a qualified doctor and, when relevant, dentist on hand. And you know what? In Aperture's defense, they do make several references to doctors and medical staff that will come and help you if you get dehydrated or the microchip in your brain starts melting down. I've never seen them myself, but I'd be inclined to let this one slide. Except I've never seen nor heard of any dentist on call, even though you told me the emancipation grid might emancipate my teeth. You think you can get away with it? The GCP sees all. Rule 5 states that all tests and experiments should be well monitored and documented. This serves two purposes. One, it ensures that you don't miss out on any important data, and future scientists can more easily replicate your test to verify your results. That's kind of the whole point of the scientific method, right? If you do something and 3 more scientists do that same thing and get the same results, then it's probably correct. It also makes sure that a third party can review your work and make sure you're not committing any pesky crimes against humanities down there, Mr. Johnson. Make sure you're not coercing homeless people into letting you take them apart and put them back together. I know you're doing it. I heard you say you're doing it. You offered them like $50 or something. I know you're doing it.
We're not banging rocks together here. We know how to put a man back together.
In Chamber 1.5, Gladys explicitly tells you that this test will not be monitored or recorded in any way, which is a clear I'm just being told that that was actually a lie, and they were secretly monitoring you the whole time in compliance with this rule. All right, Aperture, all right. Moving on to rule number 6, you cannot lie. All participants must be kept well informed of the nature, procedures, and most importantly, any associated risks involved in the test, both prior to and regularly throughout the experiment. Now, in his defense, Cave Johnson does occasionally let you know some of the potential safety risks of the tests. Well, after it's too late to do anything about it. It would have been really helpful to know that the fluorescent calcium in the coffee you gave me had a chance to calcify my frontal lobe before I drank it. Also would have been nice to know that the coffee you gave me had fluorescent calcium in it. However, I do want to give special props to the general announcer from Portal 2, who constantly gives you helpful, relevant information and procedures at every step of the test. Thank you for letting me know how to safely evacuate the building in case of emergency, how to receive instructions in other languages, or how to continue testing in the event of total environmental, social, economic, or structural collapse. A+ for being thorough.
If the laws of physics no longer apply in the future, God help you.
Rule 7 has less to do with ethics and more about ensuring the quality of your results. It states that your participants must be a representative sample of the target population. If you're developing a medicine, you should probably see how it affects people of different genders, ages, and genetic backgrounds. In Portal 2, Cave Johnson says he only wants to run tests on astronauts, war heroes, Olympians, or as he calls them, the best of the best. And that is not a representative sample of the population. A lot of people kind of suck. Rule 8 states that you must control for any potential sources of bias and identify and mitigate any failure points prior to starting your experiment. Bias in the world of science is anything that could skew your data in one particular direction, intentionally or not, and lead you to make false connections and conclusions. And failure points are, obviously, points where things can fail. Stuff goes wrong, and you have to scrap the whole experiment and start over. If you do your homework and control for both of these things ahead of time, then you can be sure that your experiment is actually going to help forward the cause of science. Perhaps if GLaDOS had been just a little more prepared before starting her tests, she would have realized that there was a very simple way for her subjects to avoid her death trap. I also just want to reiterate rule number 3, you cannot have death traps. Rule 9 states that you need to maintain patient confidentiality. You shouldn't publicly disclose or discuss any personal or medical information about the people in your study. In level 2.18, GLaDOS reveals that your parents were former test subjects and that they did not love you. And that is private information that should not be disclosed. And finally, you need to clearly describe all of the goals, procedures, and protocols of an experiment prior to starting, and have these reviewed by an external third party. Basically, you gotta follow the scientific method and not just make things up as you go. Because first of all, your participants need all of this information in order to give you proper consent to participate. So it's important from an ethical perspective. But also, from a scientific perspective, if you spent all that time controlling for bias and failure points in your specific experiment, only to change a bunch of stuff at the last second, how are you going to know that your results are accurate? So remember, if you tell your volunteers that they're going to be injected with mantis DNA, you can't suddenly change your mind and send them off to fight a completely unrelated army of mantis men. Aperture seems to really struggle with the goals part of this rule specifically. I don't really know the point of any of this, and I don't think they do either. Heck, just listen to this quote from Cave Johnson, the founder of Aperture himself.
Just a heads up, we're going to have a superconductor turned up full blast and pointed at you for the duration of this next test. I'll be honest, we're throwing science at the wall here to see what sticks. No idea what it'll do. Probably nothing. Best case scenario, you might get some superpowers. Worst case, some tumors, which we'll cut out.
So, I think that's another violation for all of them, right? And those are the 10 rules and regulations from the GCP that specifically apply to Portal and that we can verify. And so, across all 63 of the relevant test chambers from both games, the Aperture Science Enrichment Center has accrued a grand total of
176. We found a couple more while editing that I missed. Also don't know why I built it up to be some big reveal. It's literally in the bottom corner of the screen this whole time.
But the question remains, how many violations does it take for the ICH to shut down your experiment. You know, you can get away with a couple parking tickets and stuff before they take away your license, right? And the answer in this case is 1. Any one of these violations was enough to shut Cave Johnson's operations down. I mean, forget about all the death traps and the mantis men. They were toast the moment they even uttered the word cake without our permission. You can't get anything past the ICH, alright, bud? So, there you have it. Hopefully, you've all learned a bit about what it takes to perform science effectively and efficiently. Contrary to what Cave Johnson said, science is indeed about the why. So just remember, if your experiment ever requires someone to inform you if they have a nut allergy because you plan to turn their blood into peanut water, you're probably not a very good scientist. You're probably just a moron. Don't be a moron. Be safe. Now, if you'll excuse me, I heard that Aperture has developed the ability to time travel, so I'm gonna go literally have my cake and eat it too. Till next time.
Oh, hey there, you handsome devil. How's it... Oh!
At the time of this recording, federal disclosure policies require us to inform you that this next test is probably lethal and to redirect you to a safer test environment. We will attempt to comply with these now non-existent agencies by playing some more smooth jazz.
And a massive thank you to all my supporters on Patreon, including Aspa102, Alakazam, Captain Kirby, Sherry and Mark, Sidian, Big Dog Ty for to win, The Boss Killer 94, Stylish, Ty Studio, Alex, and Richard Devotee III.